Hi folks, and welcome to Mountain Talk here on WMMT. I'm Parker Hobbs. So if you've been listening to WMMT this week, you might have heard that our annual Spring Fun Drive is going on. When it comes to this show, Mountain Talk is WMMT's long-running weekly space for storytelling and community conversation about life, culture, and social issues here in the mountains. And we try to cover a lot of ground. On last week's show, for example, we had comments from East Kentucky nurses who were concerned about the Big Beautiful Bill's cuts to Medicaid and what that might mean for local health care. Before that, earlier this month, we put together an hour-long radio special on the Scotia coal disaster on its 50th anniversary. And other recent Mountain Talk shows have touched on everything from local literature to brand new Appalachian music to this year's Kentucky state budget. It's a wide mix that we cover here at Mountain Talk. And if you appreciate this blend of independent, non-commercial news, storytelling, art, culture, and more, you can be a part of keeping this show and this radio station on the air. Pitching in any amount at all goes a long way for us here. And if you're able, you can help keep WMMT going by contributing online at WMMT.org. As we always say, and we always mean it, we couldn't do this without you, and we wouldn't want to. Thanks for listening, and thanks for being the reason that this incredible experiment in Appalachian, nonprofit, people-powered radio has been on the air for 40 years now and counting. So, on to this week's show. March is Women's History Month, and today we have for you an hour-long radio special about Kentucky women and traditional music through a show that's hosted and brought to us by Kentucky folklorist and master musician John Harrod. Through a mixture of recordings and interviews with the musicians themselves, this week's show is a tribute to some of the many women who were pioneers and masters in Kentucky traditional music. This show was produced by WMMT's own Rich Kirby, and it first aired back in 2018. Here is today's host, John Harrod.
Ah, good old Bowling Green.
Today, women performers lead the way in all forms of what we might call roots music, from old time to bluegrass to country. But this is not anything new. In nearly all the communities I saw when I was traveling around the state learning about this music, there were women who sang and played the banjo, fiddle, dulcimer, and guitar. It seemed that where music was concerned, the gender roles didn't apply so much. Women were as much carriers of the traditions as men, and sometimes more so. In the ballad tradition that can be traced all the way back to the 13th century, women seemed to be the primary custodians. The old songs and stories were passed down in the home from mothers and grandmothers to children and survived that way for hundreds of years with no other audience. I got my own love and appreciation of music from women. The first voice I can remember was my mother's beautiful alto in the Baghdad Baptist Church. I heard the voices of the Carter family, the Chuckwagon Gang, and Molly O'Day on my grandfather's radio, not knowing at the time where it was leading me. I learned to play the guitar from a girl I had a crush on because she played the guitar in high school. Those voices have merged and blended and called to me over the years until I believe there is one sound, and it comes from the heart of creation. Even though women singers and all-girl bands are now popular in old-time bluegrass and country music, it's still a journey of discovery because singing is about finding your own voice. Every voice is unique, just as people are, and every voice has its own potential for development and expression. You start by imitating someone, or several ones, and you learn to use your voice in new ways and find out what you can do. But imitation then leads you back into your own true nature, where you discover your own true self. I think it's really a spiritual journey about finding out who you are and how you're connected to creation and other people. And if you embrace it, you have something to give that connects you with people at the deepest level. And that's why we do it. Addie Graham was Rich Kirby's grandmother. Rich is a musician, activist, and one of the founders of June Appal Records, the music production company at Apple Shop. Addie had a colorful life spanning the 2 world wars and the Great Depression. She was born in 1890 in Wolfe County on the headwaters of the Red River. Her repertoire was typical of Appalachian singers and included child ballads, Old Baptist hymns, black blues, and frolic pieces. Our family had music in them. It was born then, and you can't get it out. That's one thing you can't get rid of is singing. She succinctly described her emotional connection with music. There's times I get so upset, I feel like I have to sing me a good song. 3 Little Babes is number 79 in the child collection, in which the mother is visited by the spirits of her dead children.
There was a lady, but a lady girl, and children she had 3. She sent them away to the orphan's home to learn those grammary. They hadn't been gone but a very short time, only 3 weeks to a day, till death swiftly came rolling along and stole my little babies away. She prayed there might be a king in heaven who wore the brightest crown, that they might send her tender little babes tonight or in the morning soon. It was a-getting old Christmas times. The nights they were long and cold. Well, who could she see but her tender little babes come running to their mother at home? She spread them a table both long and wide. On it she put bread and wine. Come eat, come drink, my tender little babes. Come eat and drink of mine. We do not want your bread, dear mother, or neither can we drink your wine. For yonder stands our dear Savior Lord, a-waiting for us to be thine. We're going home, said the oldest one. We're going home, she cried. We're going home to die no more. We're sailing o'er the tide. My father made that last verse to it. So help me God. He did.
That was Addie Graham. There are different theories about why there were more women banjo players than fiddlers, but many women did play the fiddle, and the ones who did commanded great respect in their communities. Lela Todd, born in 1891, was one of the best traditional fiddlers I ever heard. She lived on Red River in Powell County, near the little community of Spout Springs. Even though she and her husband had no children, she was the babysitter and surrogate grandmother to all the children in the neighborhood. She entertained them with her fiddle, banjo, guitar, and ghost stories. After school, she had them dancing, playing games, and fishing in Red River. She played for the local square dances and was the fiddler in demand for the many informal music gatherings that kept the old tunes of the area alive. This home recording of her playing was made by Asa Martin, who cared enough to record the local musicians he played with for posterity. Recorded on a 3-inch reel, it's a bit noisy, but you can hear her rolling bow, articulate phrasing, and the sure timing that other musicians admired so much. Lella Todd. Blanche Coldiron was born Blanche Hurt at Pine Ridge in Wolfe County in 1922. She moved to Powell County as a young girl and picked up the banjo and fiddle from her brothers and various neighbors.
Yeah, I was beating around on the banjo a little bit, and String Beans left H.T. Martin's bunch, and he was kind of looking around for a banjo picker. And he asked my brother if he'd bring me down.
So Asa knew your
Asa
brothers.
lived, yeah. Or somebody told him about him or something. He might have come up to the house. I don't know how it was. Anyhow, my brother took me down there one night. He lived at Waltersville, near Clay
Asa
City.
did.
Lived at Waltersville at that time. And I went down there and played what I knew, and then he told my brother he'd like for us to go with him, you know, play at Lexington. And my mother wouldn't let me go. I was only 15, unless my brother was with me. And she said, I want to see AC first, and I want to talk to him. Well, she gave him the lowdown. She gave him instructions. So he really treated me with respect. He did. I can say that about him.
At age 15, she joined her brother in Asa Martin's Kentucky Hillbillies troupe on radio station WLAP in Lexington, where she was billed as Blanche, the Mountain Girl.
So we went in this big old Packard. He had this big trunk he built himself on the back out of boards and painted it.
So he'd pick you up and you'd ride in that Packard.
This is a funny little story. We was going down to play one morning, and I think we played 11 o'clock, somewhere along there. And go along down through Clark County, Winchester. This is between Winchester and Lexington. And this old farmer was driving a herd of cattle along. And just as we started to go by this herd of cattle across the road, they had this big old bass fiddle. They called them bull fiddles then. I don't know what you heard them called. But it was extra large. It wasn't just, it was extra large. Had tied on the outside, the neck up over the fender and laying on the running board, and had tied on there. And all this big herd of cattle going behind us and in front of us, and we was all just sitting there, you know, thought that would be crushed any minute. But they got by and never even touched it. That was a close call. I tell you, everybody was still as a mouse. We've had everything happen. We was going along one day and a big old rooster flew in front of us. Hit the windshield, and it didn't break it. It's Thousand Wonders hand, but it kind of hit up high. The feathers flew every way.
We When you say you didn't break it, you didn't mean the rooster, you meant the window.
Broke the rooster all right, but it didn't break the windshield. You know, we traveled on these, they called them WPA roads, and they had white crushed gravel on them. It was a black Packard, but when we start out, but when we get there, it'd be white.
At 17, Blanche married Earl Coldiron and moved to Grant County to raise a family, but she continued to perform locally at dances, fairs, and family gatherings. Blanche loved all varieties of country music, from traditional to modern. She played the fiddle in a country and western band and also played guitar, mandolin, and dobro. She was the local luthier who worked on everyone's instruments, and she wrote a number of good bluegrass and children's songs. But it was her banjo playing that took center stage for her many fans and friends. That was Blanche Coldiron. If you go to the Red River Gorge and stand on the pinnacle of Chimney Top Rock, you will be looking down on Pincham Tight Holler, the home place of Lily Mae Ledford.
We moved on down the river, and I was down by the creek picking poke, and a little boy came along with an old fiddle in his hand, swinging it along, batting weeds with it. And a tree branch would get close to his face, he'd reach up and bat it out of its way. I was afraid, to me that was a sacred thing, and I felt it was like something alive, and I was afraid he was going to damage it. And it already had all the damage it could take, I think. But anyway, I stopped him and asked him, where is he going, that fiddle? And he said, I just going home, I'll give it to me, I stayed there last night. And I said, well, do you play? He said, oh no, I can't play, I was just going to take it and trade it off. He didn't want it, and I don't want it. I said, well, would you sell it to me if I find you some things that you at home that trade with? He said, yes. And I said, well, come go home with me, and I'll see what I can find. Well, I found several things, and he picked out what he wanted. There's an old pair of gum boots, I remember, and a slingshot, and there's a little old sweater belonging to one of my brothers, and an old flashlight that had no batteries, and maybe nothing else on it, I don't remember. And just all the little old attractions I could find, you know, to then get that fiddle away from him somehow. And he finally picked out things he wanted, and there went my precious box of crayons that was so hard to come by. They only cost a nickel, but how hard it was to come by a nickel, you know, in the first place. Well, he felt like he got the best deal in the deal. I knew the way he strutted down the road, you know, smiling to himself. And I thought I got the best end of the deal, in fact, than you had. And that old fiddle didn't have nothing on it. No keys, no apron to anchor the strings to, and of course no strings or bridge or no bow. Well, I had to make all that. So I began to gather up my stuff. Well, I got me a big thick piece of wood and whittled out the apron part. I just cobbled it up and halfway shaped it, you know. And then I took a red hot wire and burnt the 4 holes I needed in it. I'd seen my daddy do that in his woodcrafting and carpentry. Well, then I whittled out my keys, bridge, and found some old scraps of banjo strings here and there in drawers and things. Strung my fiddle up. And then I had to have a bow. So I went and got me a green willow stick, big long one this time, and knew it had to have hair instead of a rubber string. So we had an old white workhorse, and he's just as dirty as he could be, and the boys were always teasing him, and they had him kind of mean. I was afraid of him. And I went into hunting for him. I found him right in the barn, right in the very place with his backside pointed right toward me. Well, I climbed up in a stall, cow stall first, and got on top of it and reached over with a big pair of scissors and chopped me out a great hunk out of his tail. He kicked a little and swung his head around at me, but he didn't bite, and I got away and put that on fastened that to each end of my stick. And bend it, you know, you had to bend it so the bow would be tight, so it looked like something you shoot arrows with. But it was dirty and greasy, and I didn't know about washing them, so I went and got some rosin out of pine stump, and it got kind of old and hard, you know, and rosin my bow good with that. And again, went up behind a big rock, hiding from Mama, and stayed up there all day long. And I first tried the old A-chorded style tuning. I think that Pete Seeger has named it cross tuning, or someone has.
At age 17, Lily Mae Ledford was walking 8 miles out of this hollow to play for tips at the railway station at Natural Bridge, where mountain musicians played for the tourists who would come down on excursion trains for the weekend. In 1936, she entered and won a talent contest put on by John Lair and gained a spot on WLS's National Barn Dance in Chicago. She soon followed Lair and his troupe to Cincinnati and then back to Kentucky to Renfro Valley, where she led the Coon Creek Girls, the country's first all-girl string band. Lily Mae related a story about the conflict between the newer and the older styles of music that every generation must deal with.
Pretty Polly was one that Mama told us we could sing. Now, Wild Bill Jones put her foot down on that, and Little Corey, and Frank and Johnny because of drinking and wine drinking, you know, and moonshining mentioned in some of them. And she said we could sing Pretty Polly, and she mentioned some other old songs. I said, well, Mama, I don't know why you think those songs that's got whiskey and drinking in them, that don't mean we have to go out and bring it in here in the house and drink it. That just means we'd be singing about it. Everybody else does. She said, yeah, you want to be like that sorry bunch lives down the road. All the women down there picking the banjo and singing them old drunkard songs. And she said, the men are making rot gut moonshine. And she said, now, that's all right maybe for the boys, but she said, now, don't you girls sing that. Now, Pretty Polly is one. There's your good love song. I said, Mama, Pretty Polly has got a murder in it. That man killed Pretty Polly. It's better to kill somebody or to drink. And she said, I think it's better to kill somebody. She said, he probably wouldn't have killed her if he hadn't been drunk. Here it is, Pretty Polly. Where is Pretty Polly? Oh, yonder she stands. Where is Pretty Polly? Oh, yonder she stands. Gold diamonds on her fingers and her lily white hand. Polly, Pretty Polly, come take a walk with me. Polly, Pretty Polly, come go along with me. Before we get married, some pleasure to see. I led her over hills and valleys so deep. I led her over hills and valleys so deep. And then Pretty Polly, she began to weep. Willie, oh Willie, I'm afraid of your way. Willie, oh Willie, I'm afraid of your way. I'm afraid you are going for to lead me astray. Polly, Pretty Polly, your guess is about right. Polly, Pretty Polly, your guess is about right. I dug on your grave the biggest part of last night. We went a little further, and what did she spy? We went a little further, and what did she spy? A newly dug
grave with a spade lying by. Threw her arms around me and begged for her life. She threw her arms around me and begged for her life. So deep into her bosom I plunged the fatal knife. She fell to the ground and the blood it did flow. She fell to the ground and the blood it did flow. And then to her grave pretty Polly did go. I threw the dirt around her and turned to go home. I threw the dirt around her and turned to go home, and left pretty Polly with the birds to weep and mourn. Now to the devil a debt I must pay, and now to the devil a debt I must pay, for killing pretty Polly and running away.
Lily Mae loved to tell her own story to young listeners. She described what life on the road was like as a young female musician in those days.
So we went on, and pretty soon we were getting baskets, fan mail, and people were crowding the studio. It was a large studio, almost as big as this auditorium. And so the manager had to scare up some chairs and get those people in there. Then the stairway would be filled, and then the street, the block, that way down the end of the block and around the corner, people would line up every day for our 30-minute program. See, radio was a big thing in those days, like TV is now. And then the next biggest was the movies. And if you made it radio and got popular there, you were pretty well, you were close enough on top to, to feel you were about as good as any of the other entertainers. We were getting fan mail from the soldiers. There was that was peacetime, but there was a soldier camp nearby, and they just sent nicest letters, and they sometimes sent little gifts, a ribbon for our hair. We wore ribbons in our hair on the stage at that time, and they would send sometimes marriage proposals. We'd get those. I remember one time a man wrote me a letter and sent a picture of himself, and he was a farm boy, and he told me that in his letter. And he said, a farm boy and you being a farm girl, we'd make a good couple, he said, I believe. And he said, now, I'll promise you one thing. He said, I'd never come home and give you a whipping like I used to my first wife. He said, and, he said, I'm a better man now than I was then. And he said, don't drink near as bad as I did. Well,
From 1975 to 1979, I had the pleasure to play with Lily Mae in a band that played in a couple of different student bars in Lexington. We also performed in schools in eastern Kentucky and for benefits to save her beloved Red River Gorge from developers. Lily Mae, like many of her generation, had lived a hard life, but her music transcended the pain and difficulties and won her a new national following in her later years.
well, we were scared to death when we got up there and saw it was all young people out there. All that hair and beard sitting out there, 15,000 of them. And we hadn't been used to playing for young people. We'd always played for middle-aged folks and older people and farm families. And, well, the ball started rolling from there. We went out there, and it went over just fine. They liked our songs. They liked everything we said, and they were just as sweet as they could be. And they were college-bred kids, most of them. And I thought, by golly, I can't believe it. It's like going into another world and finding you're accepted by aliens, or strangers, or we were aliens. But several other people came around that were going to have their own festivals and talked to us girls about playing more, and so it began to snowball. And then Rosie and Susie moved to Florida. Rosie for her health, and Susie because her husband's work took her there. So there was nobody left but me, and I thought, well, I can just rest back easy because nobody want me. But pretty soon they came after me then, since there wasn't nobody else left. And so I'm the last remnant of the old Coon Creek girls. But anyway, Mike Seeger got me started back to playing. Mike Seeger got me some good tours, like the one that lasted a month out on the West Coast. And that was wonderful to go out there. California, we'd never been further west than, I believe it was Iowa that I played when I was at WLS. And all old-time music was loved out there. And see, everything we did for them, they accepted so well, both there and up in Canada. And I kind of felt back in it. And I've been happier, I believe, than I did. I believe I'm happier doing this than I was when we were young girls. So it's been a pleasure this weekend and has absolutely flooded my heart and soul.
Her haunting rendition of Red Rocking Chair, picked two-finger style on the banjo, resonates with the loss and tragedy that we all have to deal with in this life.
Who rocked that cradle? Who sang that song? Who rocked that cradle when I'm gone? I rock that cradle, I'll sing that song. I'll rock that cradle when you're gone. Ain't got no use for the little red rocking chair. Got no sugar, honey, baby, here. Done all I can do, and I've said all I can say. Gonna see my honey next payday. Ain't got no use for the little red rocking chair. Got no sugar, honey, baby, here.
You're listening to Kentucky Women in Traditional Music, a look back at some of the women who are masters of traditional music in Kentucky. We'll be back right after this.
Welcome back to Mountain Talk here on WMMT. This week, for Women's History Month, we're bringing you an hour-long special on women in Kentucky traditional music. We'll send it back now to today's host, John Harrod.
Dora Mae Wager's professional career began when she was 20 years old on radio station WCTT in Corbin. She eventually joined the Renfro Valley Barn Dance and was for a time a member of the Coon Creek Girls. Like most rural people who came through the Great Depression, Dora Mae also had a hard life.
How I was taught to play, and grandmother raised me, and I done anything Granny told me to do. And she taught me, I remember from the first time she taught me to pick. And the little bitty hand, I could hear her say, "Shake little hand, hon, shake little hand." "Woe mule mo," she taught me. That was one of the first ones she kind of taught me to play. Her name was Aunt Sally Young. That's what her name.
Where did she live?
God, she never did do out. No, she lived right in the head of Homebrew Hollow.
In later years, Dora Mae could usually be found picking with friends around her camper at the local bluegrass festivals. Mark Wilson and I recorded her in 1997 for a banjo anthology on Rounder Records after a recent tragedy that had occurred in her family. But she insisted on going through with the session and played for us on what she said was a haunted banjo that had played itself in the middle of the night. If we ever doubted the power of music to overcome pain and suffering, Dora Mae made believers out of us on that day. Here's a song from the time when she played with the Coon Creek Girls at Renfro Valley. Lily Mae Ledford is the fiddler here, and Dora Mae is playing the banjo and singing. Following the Coon Creek Girls, another female string band, the Ambergy Sisters, were the daughters of a coal miner and farmer from Neon in eastern Kentucky. Bertha played the fiddle, Irene the guitar, and Opal the banjo and mandolin. Like Lily Mae, they were teenagers when they began their performing career in Lexington. Irene tells the story.
The only rough spots that I can recall was when I first started. I went a few days pretty hungry and was too proud to ride home and let my mommy and daddy know it, because if I had, they'd have come and got me. I'll never forget when we first went to Lexington, Kentucky, to the radio job. Was with an all-girl band working for this man. And this was a bad awakening because we really and truly were so innocent. And this man, of course, he was a married man, had a big family. He would try to make advances toward us girls, and many times I would slap his face. That's one thing that is rough on a woman. You have to just remember where you come from and how to handle it, and I think I've handled it pretty well.
After stints in Bluefield, West Virginia, and Renfro Valley, where they were also members of Lily Mae's Coon Creek Girls, they ended up in Atlanta in 1940 on station WSB with New Names.
We started out in Lexington, Kentucky, WLAP, in '39, and then John Lair had the Renfro Valley Barn Dance. I'm sure you're acquainted with that. He heard of us, and he brought us to Renfro Valley, and we became the Coon Creek Girls along with Lily Mae Ledford. Then he formed another country show to start in Atlanta, Georgia. He was going to call it the WSB Barn Dance. And instead of being called the Coon Creek Girls, then we were called the Hoot Owl Holler Girls. We've been called nearly everything. The three of us girls, when we got into Atlanta to be the Hoot Owl Holler Girls, our picture was on the front page of the Atlanta Journal. Down under there, it said Minnie, Maddie, and Martha, the Hoot Owl Holler Girls. So we had to sit down and pick out who's Minnie and who's Maddie and who's Martha.
There, without John Lair looking over their shoulder, they were considerably more rowdy than the Coon Creek Girls. The Ambergy's biggest hit, You Can't Live With Them and You Can't Live Without 'Em, was written by Bertha after a fight with her husband.
To be free, but we can't live with them and we can't live without them. What are us poor girls gonna do? When we marry, that's all right. Yeah, but I don't like to fight. But there ain't nothing else for us to do. They start acting lazy, they'll drive you plumb crazy, and poverty comes knocking at your door. When they work 8 hours, they're happy as a sparrow, while us girls have to work her 24. But we can't live with them and we can't live without them. What are us poor girls gonna like to fight, but there ain't nothing else for us to do. No, there ain't nothing else for us to do. If they don't fuss and fight, and they'll stay out late at night while you're home rocking babies all alone. When they come staggering in, if you ask them where you've been, you're sure to spoil your happy home. But we can't live with them and we can't live without them. What are us poor girls gonna do? Now when we marry, that's alright. Yeah, but you know we don't like to fight. But there ain't nothing else for us to do. No, there ain't nothing else for us to do.
The Ambergies, like many professional performers of the time, played and recorded under so many different names that it's sometimes difficult to keep up with who was who. In Atlanta, Irene, the alto in the group, married James Roberts, the son of Kentucky's Fiddle and Doc Roberts. They adopted yet another stage name and performed and recorded as the gospel duet James and Martha Carson. Their divorce, played out in public in the country music world, threatened her career. A divorced woman could not sing gospel songs.
After we broke up Capitol Records, wouldn't let me do a solo. The A&R man was D. Kilpatrick at the time. D. Kilpatrick would come to Knoxville after we were party company. I said, well, I'm not gonna build any more duets. And he said, well, Martha, you just can't sing a solo. I said, okay. I said, whatever I do from this point on, I'll do by myself. And if it goes, that's great. And if it don't, I'll be the only one to hit the ground. And he said, well, we're just not going to record you as a solo singer. And I said, well, just sit on that contract, because my contract was in force for 3 more years. And I said, just sit on that contract there and see what you hatch out. I'd started singing my solos on the Midday Merry-Go-Round. It was almost like just starting all over to get up and sing by myself anyway, because I'd started out originally with my 2 sisters and then the duet, and then all of a sudden by myself. It was a real weird feeling.
The stress involved with starting her career anew as a solo performer led to her biggest hit, Satisfied.
I had not established any confidence in my ability to stand alone, but I was trying to. We started over the Great Smoky Mountains to do a show that night. And I've never been a crybaby, but the tears just came uncontrollable. I cried all the way through Gatlinburg and about halfway up the Great Smoky Mountains. I was riding in the back seat of Bill Carlisle's car, and all of a sudden, it was just like a voice spoke to me and says, why are you crying? I'm satisfied, and you're satisfied. And there came the song, just like a gush of lightning. And I couldn't find a thing to write on in my purse. And I looked down at the floor, there was an old dirty blank check on the floorboard of Bill Carlisle's car. Had muddy shoe prints all over it, but it was dry. We got to Bryson City, North Carolina. I was the happiest person in the world. The song brought me such comfort. I loved the way it sounded.
You ask me if I'm happy, if I have peace within, if I'm worried about tomorrow, when I'll reach my journey's end. Well, I'm satisfied with my Jesus. When he knocks, I'll let him in. He'll go with me through the valley, for I know he is my friend. Satisfied
The young Elvis Presley was one of her biggest fans and would go to her shows and hang out backstage and sing with her. Seeing Martha Carson on stage dancing and belting it out in high heels, it was easy to see the influence she had on Elvis and the subsequent history of both rock and roll and gospel music. Her integrity, commitment to her music and spiritual life, her sincerity and charisma affirm her place as one of the greatest performers to ever give the old mountain music to the wider world.
Be yourself. Don't try to sound like nobody else, because God didn't make but one you, and God didn't make but one Martha Carson. That's what the people need. They need to hear you, your originality, not you trying to sound like Patsy Cline or Kitty Wells or whatever. I think that's the most important thing I could tell them. And just to always be on guard and try to keep their morals down through the years in the middle of the road. Because it really is wonderful to have been in the business as many years as I have and have the great respect that I enjoy.
Martha Carson. Of all the women who followed their music into professional careers, no one ever embodied the emotion of mountain gospel singing better than Molly O'Day. Mary Buffwack and Robert Orman, in their excellent history of women in country music, Finding Her Voice, described her sound as a throbbing, sobbing, thrilling, chilling delivery, full of Pentecostal fervor and conviction. She was born Laverne Williamson, another daughter of a coal miner, in Pike County, Kentucky in 1923. As a 16-year-old, she joined her brother's band in Charleston, West Virginia, taking the name Mountain Fern. In 1941, she married Lynn Davis, and together they performed throughout the South. In Montgomery, she met Hank Williams, who was then unknown, and she became the first to record his songs. But after her early success and popularity, she began to have doubts about the performing life, and in 1949 suffered a nervous breakdown. Then, after contracting tuberculosis and losing part of one lung, she and her husband joined the Church of God, turned their backs on show business, refused offers from the recording companies, and spent the next 30 years preaching and singing in obscure little churches in the coal towns of East Kentucky and West Virginia. She died of cancer at age 64 in 1987. She described her singing in the simplest terms. I sing from the heart. I always have. I don't think they're doing that enough these days.
Going toward the sunset of time, traveling the highway home, leaving this world of sin far behind, traveling the highway home, traveling the highway home, traveling the highway home. Though narrow the way, thank God I can say I'm traveling the highway home. Old Satan said that I'd never be traveling the highway home. When I resisted, he had to flee. I'm traveling the highway home, traveling the highway home, traveling the highway home. Though narrow the way, thank God I can say I'm traveling the highway home.
The most flamboyant female country performer of all time was undoubtedly Cousin Emmy. She was born Cynthia May Carver to a musical family in a log cabin near Glasgow. Although she only attended school for a total of 2 weeks, she learned to read from poring over mail order catalogs. "I ain't educated, but I'm sincere," she would say. And she had the intelligence and business savvy to be the first unmarried, independent, self-supporting, touring female artist in country music. Although she was mainly known for her banjo playing, she was also good enough on the fiddle to win the National Old-Time Fiddle Contest in Louisville in 1935. Her band, the Kinfolks, consisted of children she had adopted as well as strays and homeless people she had picked up who could play an instrument. Piled into her Cadillac, they traveled the country doing time at the major radio stations and eventually ending up in California. She was playing at Disneyland when she was rediscovered by the New Lost City Ramblers in time to enjoy a brief second career in the folk revival of the 1960s. With her bright red lipstick, big toothy grin, wild hair done up in ribbons, and playing the fiddle between her legs, she was the country equivalent of Lady Gaga. Her single girl is a timeless lament.
Oh, I wish I was a single girl again. When I was single, marrying was my craze. Now I am married and I'm trouble to my grave. Oh, I wish I was a single girl again. Girl again. Dishes to wash and the spring to go to. Got no one to help me, oh, I have it all to do. Oh, I wish I was a single girl again. Girl again. 2 little children lying in the bed, both them so hungry, oh, they can't raise up the head. Oh, I wish I was a single girl again. Girl again. When I was single, marrying was my craze. Now I am married and I'm trouble to my grave. Oh, I wish I was a single girl again.
Going back and listening to some of my favorite songs and tunes played by women, I realized that over time I'd learned to listen in new ways to old music, and that listening itself is also an ongoing journey. Just as we learn to play an instrument, we also have to learn to listen. An old man I once knew said in honest amazement the first time he ever heard an opera singer, "It sounds like she's treed something." That showed he was listening, and he related it to his own experience. I truly believe that anyone can sing. It is not so much about technique, but more about the spiritual growth that leads to self-discovery and acceptance. These women musicianers, as they were called, were not trained except by listening to others in their family and the sounds of nature, and that process had been going on for a long time. Their voices may not sound pretty and sweet to modern ears, but they have a sound that comes out of deep histories and old souls. I hope that by listening to these voices we might be inspired to discover something in ourselves and sing and play more. To all the women featured in this program, music was much more than entertainment. It was a necessary component of survival, and I think it is for us too. I'm John Harrod. Thanks for listening.
Bowling green, oh, good old Bowling Green.
You've been listening to a special program about women in Kentucky traditional music that was hosted and brought to us by Kentucky folklorist and master musician John Harrod. The show was produced by WMMT's own Rich Kirby, and it first aired back in 2018. And special thanks to Rachel Goodman for the use of her recordings in the show. And that's it for Mountain Talk today. Thanks so much for listening. As a final note, if you enjoyed today's Mountain Talk here on WMMT, you can be a part of keeping this show and this unique and special radio station on the air as an independent, non-commercial, non-industrial, community-driven thing, which has made it now for 40 years through a total group effort of listeners coming together to keep it going. You can contribute at WMMT.org, and anything at all goes a long way. As we always say, we couldn't do this thing without you, and we wouldn't much want to. For WMMT, Mountain Community Radio, I'm Parker Hobson.